The Democratic Alliance says it wants to know about more details about the series of payments that will be made to the SABC as part of the bailout of the corporation. Earlier this week, the Finance Minister Tito Mboweni said the corporation would be getting 3.2 billion rand after the SABC had warned several times it may not be able to pay the salaries of staff. Now, Mboweni says the money will be paid out in several tranches and subject to certain conditions. It also appears part of this will be the appointment of a chief restructuring officer. Phumzile Van Damme is the DA's Shadow Minister of Communications. She joins me now on the phone. Phumzile, good evening to you. Thank you for your time tonight. What information are you now requesting about this bailout?
Well, the Minister of Finance has already gone back on one of his commitments. He promised the day before, that the chief restructuring officer would be announced for the SABC. So we'll be taking the issue up with him and the Minister of Communications. So the information we're requiring is the conditions under which the funding will be provided. We believe that as Parliament, we need to be part of the process of conducting oversight over the SABC to make sure that the funding is spent properly so that the SABC does not find itself in another financial crisis. We also want to know the job description and the terms of reference of the Chief Restructuring Officer. As you know, the SABC is an independent body, so we want to make sure that the CRO is not government trying to get control over the SABC by itself. So that's part of the information that we want to know, and we want to know the amounts, the tranches that the Minister of Finance said the SABC will be given funding.
It looks like the SABC is under pressure to restructure, that certain functions might be perhaps even removed or certainly changed. Do you believe the corporation does need to be restructured?
Well, I think in order to prevent the SABC from going into another financial crisis, it's important that steps are taken to restructure the SABC to make sure that I think the ultimate goal needs to be an SABC that can self-sustain, that doesn't require SABC funding. But at the same time, I appreciate that the current management is not at fault for the financial crisis the SABC finds itself in. But I do believe that some changes need to be made. And we're pleased that thus far, as SABC indicated in Parliament a few weeks ago, that they've been able to cut costs by 1 billion. So I think there's a lot of work to be done to kind of steer the ship to calm waters.
It does now appear that there'll be a chief restructuring officer appointed to the SABC. We don't yet know what powers that person will have. Could there be a concern here about the powers of that person, maybe even relating to editorial independence in some way?
Absolutely. That is one of my main concerns. I don't think there is a problem with, a staff member from National Treasury liaising with the SABC and having oversight over the money and being part of those processes. However, I think the SABC is an independent body. It's independent from government. And I know that is something that government has not understood or infringed upon. So I think that is part of the information we're requesting. We need clear terms of references of what the CRO will be required to do, their job description. There absolutely must be no infringement of the SABC's independence. As stated in the Broadcasting Act, the board is the ultimate authority on decisions related to the broadcaster. So those type of legislative provisions need to be respected.
Do you know if it's even legal to have a chief restructuring officer? I don't know if there is a provision for such a person under the Constitution, the Articles of Association of the SABC, or the Broadcasting Act.
Look, I don't think there's anything wrong with somebody from National Treasury, having some oversight over how the money is spent and there being an open line of communication. But as I said, it needs to be within, the laws governing the SABC. But obviously, if we get those terms of reference and it's quite clear this is a method for government to gain control of the SABC by stealth, we will fight that. But I don't think there's a problem with an open communication line with National Treasury to have oversight over the spending of the funding.
There's been a long delay in the announcement of this funding. We still don't have full details about when the money will come. I think it's probably fairly obvious there's an urgent need for some maintenance at the SABC. Do you worry this delay in the funding, the longer it takes for the money to arrive, the bigger the problems could become?
Absolutely. I think our main concern is, one, the staff of the SABC will have to work in atrocious conditions. We know some of the buildings are falling apart. There was a gas leak in one of the buildings. And also the SABC indicated a few weeks ago that they only have 3 weeks of salaries left. So I think the problem is dire. We do not want the SABC to reach day zero where it's taken off air and it can no longer exist. But I do think that the delay is deliberate. As I stated, the minister stated that the chief restructuring officer would be announced yesterday. And I think the reason for the delay is quite insidious. I think they want a situation where they frustrate board members, they frustrate top management to such state where they decide to resign. So I think this problem has been ongoing for a very long time. There's no reason why it has taken so long. I appreciate that there needs to be negotiation. But I think, as I know, that the SABC met all of National Treasury's 11 preconditions. So there's no reason for further delays, and I think the reasons are very insidious.
Phumzile, I mean, that's quite a strong claim to make, to put an insidious motive to it. Do you have evidence to back that up?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked, the SABC has been a body that I've had oversight over for a very long time. And I know the ruling parties' first unhappiness with the independence of the board. The ANC's Secretary General said as much. The minister also has a very acrimonious relationship with the SABC. So I do have a very strong suspicion that the reasons for the delay are insidious. And yeah, I think that is absolutely part of the reason why there's been a delay. I mean, when the last term of Parliament ended, we were told this problem would be solved, in a matter of weeks. But here we are in July. I think at the end of the term, the Minister of Communication said retrenchments must stop, the problems will be solved. When she came back after the election, no, retrenchments must take place. The funding hasn't been given. So I think there's a lot of politics that has played with the SABC. I think the minister played with the emotions of the SABC staff. Right. I think it was a politically, convenient thing to say before the elections, retrenchments must stop.
Okay,
but now she comes back and says no more retrenchments.
We'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Phumzile Van Damme, the DA's Shadow Minister of Communication.